to think they know something about football!
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Packer Transplants. I'm Aaron Negler, and I am joined, as always, by Mr. Corey Banke, my partner here at Cheesehead TV. We are coming to you from the Live X studio in Midtown Manhattan, and we are ready to talk some Packers and some NFL draft. What do we have on tap today, Corey?
Today, we'll look at the Packers' moves so far this offseason and look ahead to the draft with Andy Herman. But right now, it's time for the good, the bad, and the ugly. We got the good, we got
Packers sign free agents.
We got the bad, we got
Having to overspend.
and we got the ugly, we got
Jimmy Graham's blocking, which for some reason is a topic in late March.
wow.
How are you, Corey Banke?
I'm great.
I want everyone to know. We're here because we are providing extra content for the purchasers of the Cheesehead TV Draft Guide. And and when you decide to do this, you got to go all in, right? You got to be committed. You got to be like, yo, we are here. We're dedicated to Green Bay Packers fans worldwide. It's what we do. And then you talk to Banke the morning of, and he's like, why are we doing this today? Like, why do we got to do this? Why are we? Why?
Okay,
so
I
You're going to
represent-
get the best content possible from Mr. Banke.
Okay, here's the thing. I represent
Yes, you do.
vast majority of Packer fans who basically check Twitter or check Cheesehead TV
Right.
every other day during the silly season.
Or they possibly do both by downloading the Cheesehead TV app.
Yep. I'm in the silly season. I follow people like you.
Right.
You give me what I need.
Right.
I move on with my life.
What you? How?
I don't need to
How is that possible?
parse all of the intricate moves that we're not going to know anything until
minutia.
August.
The minutia.
The minutia.
We're hot in the minutia right now.
Dude, the volume of minutia.
Right now, as we talk, as we speak, recording this,
ridiculous.
there is a month until the NFL draft. A month yet.
Do you know how many emails I get
Holy cow.
of people who have purchased the draft guide?
Yeah.
And they'll
A
email
few.
me
Right.
and say, I only have a picture in my cart. When am I going to get the guide? And I'm like, dude, it's pre-order.
Pre-order.
There are super fans who are just waiting on the edge of
They're
their
just
seats.
like this. They're like the what's his name? That meme that says you got any more of those draft guides? Like he's ready. You get these people are ready. They're draft nerds. They're ready to go, Banke.
I used to be like that. Maybe
I know,
it's
I remember.
a youthful thing.
It's a bygone era.
I used to be like that, but now I'm like, you're inundated with everything.
Yes.
Like I knew within an hour of LaFleur telling Wes Hod and all the beat writers that we were gonna have another team practice
Joint
with us.
practice, but not official yet. Every tweet
But
started
that he
with,
wanted
this isn't
to."
official yet, but
Like I've known that. It's like you're just inundated with all the info. And the free agent pickups. I know we're gonna get to that.
are
but
you using the word inundated? I've never heard inundated, but I could be wrong.
are you talking crap about my dialect?
I don't know what yes. Your Green Bay,
Nagler.
LA, North Carolina
Nagler.
dialect.
That's Nagler. That's a regionalism.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. All right. Hey.
That's
Far be it from me.
You're
Which
you're
region is that?
discriminating against my regionalism. Okay, I don't appreciate that.
Which region exactly is that? Is that Green Bay? Is that LA? Is that North Carolina? I'm just wondering. I want to know which part of the country I cannot travel to anymore. After people will be offended.
I somewhat liked you up until this point in the show.
Should we talk some Packers news? There's Packers news, Banke.
There's not.
Whether you want to
There's
believe it
not
or not,
really,
Banke,
though.
there is news. Well, okay. Since the last time we spoke,
Oh, there's a lot
on
of
Packer
news.
Transplants,
Lot of news.
There's some stuff to talk about.
Yep.
So here we go.
Okay.
First up, the Packers go on a spending spree.
I like it.
In free agency.
Everybody likes it.
Can you imagine?
Nope.
In this lifetime, the year of our Lord, 2019, the Packers spend money in
Real
free
money.
agency.
It's exciting, but then not spend money on some people. Let some people go.
Yeah, that's true. But what I like about it, okay, they addressed needs, obviously, which is what you have to do. Did they overspend? Yeah. It's also what you have to do.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to get young guys.
Yeah.
Ascending guys.
Yeah.
Which is what they do. It's funny, in Thompson's tenure and even last year with Gutekunst, it was very much focusing on trying to get guys who maybe can still help, but are definitely on the downside of their careers. Whether you're talking Marty Bennett, whether you're talking Jimmy Graham,
but not Chuck Woodson. He was right in the middle.
Right, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I'm talking of recent vintage.
Well, I was watching how LaFleur has now watched up to this point today, watched from every Aaron Rodgers snap, 1,500 snaps from 2017 to today. And I'm like, well, you know what? The snaps he should be watching?
What's that?
2010. 2010.
I hate to tell you, though, but he ain't that guy anymore. We've
2010.
We've talked
I
about
want that
it.
guy back.
Well, that's great. Invent a time machine, because that guy is not the guy who's going to take the field in 2019. Sorry, but it's true.
But that's the guy I want, though.
Okay, that's great. Well, we'll go out in a lab and we'll create him.
Okay.
But yes,
maybe we should draft him then.
I think it is a draft show. We'll talk to Andy Herman about that, who, by the way, will be joining us momentarily here on Packer Transplants to talk draft prospects, draft, ideas and possible plans for the Packers. Because look, as Corey has clearly indicated, he doesn't pay attention.
No, Andy Herman is like the perfect
I barely pay attention. Andy is all in on this.
He knows
stuff.
what's up.
So we'll talk to Andy Herman in a little bit about the Packers and the draft. But quickly, getting back to the news and what's happened, Gutekunst's spending on ascending players I thought was really smart. And I liked his quotes coming out of the owners' meetings this week saying he wanted to get guys who could grow with his team. And I think that's really smart in the sense of Gutekunst having to put his stamp on his squad this offseason. Like, obviously, last year he was dealing with a lot of stuff that was left over from when Ted Thompson was in charge. Now it's his team. It's his squad. All the talk about, the 2015 draft class, and, there's not a lot of talent there, blah, 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 blah. All of that was fine last year, but now it's your guys. It's your squad. There's no more excuses. You're going to have now had 2 free agency periods and 2 drafts.
But don't they say it takes 3 drafts?
It does, but, he's in a 5-year contract. After year 2 of missing the playoffs, if you go year 3 of missing the playoffs, second year into your contract, you're in a world of hurt.
Can we just say, if the Packers don't make the playoffs this year, heads need to roll.
Oh, Banky throwing it down. But they won't. How could they possibly? You got a GM in the second year going into his third. You got a head coach in the first year going into his second. They're not going to fire anybody. Who are they going to fire?
I got a person in mind.
Relax now. Just take it easy. You're talking about Mark Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
But so for what? For who?
How do you fire him?
Well, the executive committee has to come together and do something that's never been done in the history of the Green Bay Packers.
Good luck with that.
Yes, exactly. But that's my point. Like, you have to let this play out with the guys that Murphy has selected, right? That is all that is left to do now. Like, all the gnashing of teeth, all of that.
How many years?
It's not Ron Wolf. It's not the way Bob Harlan did it. Fine.
How many years do we not have to make the playoffs before that happens?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I mean, we went, decades before. So I don't know. I get the feeling we may find out.
I just can't even think about it. What?
Corey's got his nice house across from Lambeau, and now the Packers suck.
No, it'll be like my childhood.
I know. Exactly.
It'll be like my childhood all over again.
The circle of life.
Circle of life.
Coming back to when they sucked. I don't know. But speaking of sucked and sad feelings and, saying goodbye, Randall Cobb, Clay Matthews, Nick Perry, out the door. I mean, I guess most people are probably not upset about seeing Nick Perry walk out the door, even though he did contribute.
Yeah.
I feel over the span of his career.
Yeah, I thought he contributed.
But, Clay Matthews helped him win a Super Bowl. Randall Cobb came in the year after the Super Bowl, but helped them win a lot of games.
Clay Matthews' first 3 or 4 years were magical.
Yes.
Like, I remember the first
Absolutely.
time when he rips the ball out, or he'd always have those plays. It was almost
to me, it's that week 2 game against Buffalo his rookie year when he had 3 sacks in Lambeau. And I remember, I think it was the second sack. He comes in and just destroys the quarterback and turns around. And I think this is even before he started really getting into the Claymaker thing.
Yeah.
So he just turns around to the crowd and is like giving one of these like hands up, like, let me hear your noise. And it was just like Gladiator.
Yeah.
Are you not entertained?
Yeah.
I just decimated. I just completely decapitated this quarterback for you. And it was like, oh, we've got that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? we've got that guy.
Yeah, which we know teams really have.
We haven't had it since Reggie White, and now we've got it.
Well, that's who I was going to compare it to. I was like, when he first came out of the gate, the feeling, not what he did, but not comparing
shift.
them.
No, none of that.
But as far as like
giving you that feeling of like we can go after and kill some quarterbacks now. Oh yeah.
But also like takeaways and getting the ball and like being at the right
game-changing
he's like
plays.
One of those players like Chuck Woodson was like this where he's at the right place at the right time.
Absolutely.
And even later on in his career, he found himself still in those places. I would say last year, unfortunately, he found himself.
He was flagged for those plays.
He found himself his timing was not as good.
Yeah, right.
But he was still there. That's the thing. It's like, it's funny.
Yes.
If his sack last year basically
against Minnesota,
it turned the entire NFL on its head for the season.
Yep.
That is the turning point
100%.
of whether you could sack a quarterback or not last year.
And how you could do it. And how you got to
like
go
all
about
of a sudden, he got
you
penalized for doing
it. Game
and then
taken
now you
away
don't.
from you because of the way you sacked a quarterback.
But then everybody else sacked the quarterback and they never like
there was no problem. But yes, I agree. And it's funny too, you talk about the turnovers and Chuck Woodson. It's funny you mentioned that because when the news broke that Clay was going to LA, signing with the Rams, which of course made made total sense.
Yeah.
You know, going home, playing in LA, I get it. But I thought of that game in 2009. Obviously the year before they won the Super Bowl, but it was when they really kind of gelled and coalesced as a defense with Woodson and Matthews in that game. It was when they were coming off the loss in Tampa Bay, and it felt bad around Green Bay. Like it was like, because I don't think Tampa Bay had won a game up to that point, and Green Bay looked really bad in that game. And it was like, oh, it's time to fire McCarthy. That was when the drumbeat started, blah, 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 blah. And they had a players-only meeting, and it was bad. And Rodgers had played poorly, et cetera. But then they had a home game the next week against Dallas. And Woodson and Matthews essentially willed that game to the Packers. Like, Rodgers did his bit, offense scored, et cetera, et cetera. But they terrorized Tony Romo in that game. Woodson from the slot, Matthews lined up all over the place. And that game, to me, is when it started as far as, like, their ascension to an elite level and a team that was a contender. And, you know, obviously we said bye to Chuck Woodson a long time ago.
Yeah.
But to see Clay walk out the door, it's an end of an era, man.
It is. And you know, Cobb, like everybody, it feels like, you know, on the socials, Cobb is like 50-50, right? There's people that are,
man.
but you know, you take Randall Cobb out last season and we don't win that first game in Chicago.
No, of course not.
Don't win it.
They took, Randall got hurt and took out the majority of the season, and you saw how kind of pedestrian the offense became.
And if anything, I feel like his play for the Packers is his not downward slide. I feel like more so than Jordy, his lack of as many plays as he had in the past, to me, is more so a product of Aaron Rodgers changing his play, not taking checkdowns, not taking the safer
stuff
things.
over the middle.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the heat maps from Rodgers the last 2 years. Like, he avoids the middle of the field like a plague. Like, he's just not his game.
Yeah.
And that's where Cobb thrived.
Which is insane, right? It's like literally in every NFL game ever played in the last like 5 years, where are the most open people? Where do you get destroyed? In the middle.
Well, we think that because we're Packers fans and we've watched Dom Capers' defense get opened up in the middle.
No, but even in the playoffs, you look at that.
No, I agree.
You look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady just like
takes it over the middle,
destroys in the middle.
I hear you. Hey, speaking of destroys and speaking of destroying, Packers opening up in Chicago. The news breaking yesterday before we taped. Packers, for the second year in a row, opening up against the Bears, but this time to celebrate the NFL's 100th season, opening in Soldier Field. How do you feel about that, Mickey?
I don't like the NFL.
That's fair.
I don't want to celebrate.
Fair.
I don't want to celebrate the NFL's 100th season. I'm going to celebrate the Packers' 101st season. Okay?
I like it.
Right now, the NFL is dead to me.
Why is that?
I don't know.
Because they're outlawing blindside blocks? That's right. The owners' meetings today, they just ratified it, certified it, whatever you want to call it. No more blindside blocks. That's the NFL today.
In some ways, that should have been outlawed a long time ago.
See, I get it on
Like, I agree.
Kick plays. I get it on punts. I get it on kick returns. But the field of play,
I think they should still do punts, but they should get rid of kickoffs.
Yeah, I'm down with that. And then the other thing that was defeated in the blindside block genre, when talking about new rule proposals, the thing that was defeated was, I think the Broncos put up, because you saw the AFF had the fourth and long conversion.
Yeah.
Teams could opt to do that in lieu of a onside kick. And because onside kicks are so impossible now with the new rules, I think Denver had proposed, okay, let's have a 4th and 15 conversion. So you can choose a 4th and 15 if you want to eschew the onside kick and say, okay, we're going to take the ball on our own end of the field. I think it's a 20, 25, 30, whatever. It's 4th and 15. If we convert, we keep the ball. I love this idea. The competition committee loved it. 7-1 voted to endorse it. And of course, NFL owners were like, nah.
Man. I mean, it's not surprising.
No, of course
Look at the NFL ownership.
I know. I agree.
I mean,
I agree.
It all flows downhill.
Well, you see, typically it does, but the coaches actually got this replay thing with Sean Payton leading the charge. They may actually now, they got to talk about a little bit more in May.
Right, they can basically...
They can review basically anything. Like, especially interference.
Can't they only review
what on earth are you doing? Opening up that,
but only if you have the
you have to have the challenge, obviously. But still, like, yeah, let's just make the game 4 hours long. Like, it's ridiculous. I hate it. I'm a traditionalist.
I mean, to me, if the NFL was truly innovative, right? They've got all these streaming new revenue opportunities.
Right.
To me, it's like you've got this enormously popular thing that tons of brands would pay multiple insane amounts of money to not have commercials.
Yes.
What if you were?
Where is that?
What if What if Unilever or Budweiser or whoever was like, you know what?
Premier League's been doing it forever.
We're gonna pay so that you don't have to have commercials, but we're gonna remind you of that fact a lot,
like all the time, everywhere. We're gonna blanket the place in our brand.
But how different would the game be? It would be so much better.
So much better. You know what would be so much better? By the way, is talking to someone about the draft on a draft show who actually knows what the hell they're talking about. That's why we call our guy, Andy Herman. Cheesehead TV's own Andy Herman. You've heard of Andy Herman. You know him. You follow him on Twitter, Scotty Sports.
I've done a Pack a Day podcast.
You've done a Pack a Day podcast. So have I. So let's talk to Andy. Andy, please tell me you're there and listening and can talk some sense into these people.
I am absolutely here. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
All right.
Andy Herman, ladies and gentlemen. Andy, how the hell are you, buddy?
I am doing fantastic. There is nothing I would rather be doing right now than talking draft with you guys. This is an absolute pleasure.
That's what I'm talking about. The pleasure is all on this end of the conversation, my friend. All right. So let's break it down. Let's talk some Packers draft. Let's talk about needs. Let's talk about Packers needs on the roster. Looking at it, obviously, they could still make moves. Free agency is not over. They signed Chuck Woodson the week of the draft, as I always try and remind people on Twitter. So anything can happen. But looking right now, where do you see the most need? If you're looking at the roster as a GM, where is the spot where you look and go, oh, yeah, we need help right there?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I think you and I kind of interacted on Twitter earlier this past week about what was the biggest need. I kind of put offensive line out there. I think you had safety. I had safety number 2 on my list. But when you heard Brian Gutekunst today talk a little bit about Tramon Williams really wanting to be a corner, and then Matt LaFleur echoed that statement, I think when you look at it that way, safety really becomes a need in this draft. And like you said, they could still attack in free agency. Maybe a Trey Boston would be somebody that they could look at, maybe Glover Quinn. But this is a position that even if they do address it in safety with one of those type of players, they still would love to have a long-term safety that they can develop coming from one of the top 2 rounds in this draft. And I think when you look at pick 30, pick 44, they're in a really great position to do that. So you've kind of talked me into it a little bit, Aaron. I think safety might be their 1A on the draft board at the moment.
Is there anybody in this draft that you like? I mean, I know there are a couple names that kind of always get floated. Obviously, there's a Packers connection with one of them, but is there a guy specifically that you look at and you think might work well with Mike Pettine's defense?
Yeah, there's two, and one of them is certainly the one you just mentioned with Nasir Adderley. He's certainly a prospect coming from a small school, but has tremendous range. If you can kind of get past the fact that he isn't maybe the greatest at man coverage and that he came from a small school, he does everything else really, really well. He has a couple highlight plays on tape where he gets way deep, kind of Earl Thomas type range. I'm not saying he's not, but he has a couple plays on tape like that just kind of make you turn your head and go wow a little bit. So he's definitely one of those players. And the other is Juan Thornhill. And when you look at a guy who just, tests through the roof, the comp with him is Byron Jones from Dallas. He's played some corner, he's played some safety. You would love for his safety instincts to be just a little bit more fine-tuned, but he only played one year at safety, and I think that's going to come with time. And he just screams a player that Green Bay would be interested in at safety. So those two are really the ones that kind of stand out to me.
It's funny you say small school safety, and the Packers won a Super Bowl with a small school safety and Nick Collins. I mean, I'm all for that, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is Andy Herman's dream first round? Now, obviously, everyone and their mother on Twitter does some kind of mock draft, and they go, "Oh, this would be great, and I'd love this, and I want to get this guy here and that guy there." Andy Herman, I'm asking you right here on the Packer Transplants Draft Guide Special, what is your dream scenario for round one for the Green Bay Packers?
Yeah, so I would love to have a super hot take and come at you with a name that nobody's heard before. But, you touched base on it on Cheesehead TV Live, and that's Ed Oliver being there available at number 12. That's as close to a dream scenario that you get. I know he's maybe not the 1A position of need. Of course, you've got Mike Daniels. Of course, you have Kenny Clark. But this is a guy with tremendous versatility. And if he's there at 12, it means that GMs did the classic overthinking of it because he was so highly regarded as a player 2 years ago that they are constantly nitpicking him this year. And they just overthought it because he is so tremendously valuable at so many different things. His penetration ability is what immediately stands out. Of course, is he probably going to be Aaron Donald? Probably not, because those guys come across, once every decade or two. But he's so phenomenally skilled as a penetrator. He can hold up at the point of attack. And the thing that I really like about him is his versatility across the line. We've talked a lot about Zadarius Smith and what he's going to be able to bring to this team, playing both outside and inside. And this is a system that's going to use a ton of games, a ton of stunts, and they would be set up so incredibly well with Ed Oliver and Kenny Clark and Mike Daniels and Zadarius Smith doing so much of that, and not to mention Preston Smith, Kyler Fackrell. The things that Mike Pettin would have at his disposal to do with that front group would be so fun to watch. So at 12, that's such a dream. And then one of those tight ends falling to you at 30. Again, I know the Iowa guys have been the air of everyone's eye that people want. Noah Fant, TJ Hawkinson. If either of those guys are available at 30, that's a dream scenario. I'm usually not a tight end first round kind of guy. These guys usually take a couple years to develop, and usually you can get them better on a second contract than what they perform in their first contract. But these two players from Iowa are super special, and Iowa certainly has earned the moniker of tight end U.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Oliver, and it's funny to watch the pushback on Twitter. To me, it's like you look at the Packers' history, and obviously Gutekunst is not Thompson, but the way Thompson operated for so long was he drafted a year ahead of contracts going up to kind of guard against having to overpay to keep a guy. And to me, obviously Jason Spriggs didn't work out, but the Jason Spriggs selection was very much about, okay, what if we can't re-sign David Bakhtiari? And to me, taking Oliver there would very much be, what if we can't re-sign Mike Daniels? And yeah, I think he's going to obviously improve you this year, but could definitely hedge your bet, so to speak, going down the road.
Here's the thing, though. I'll bet you both.
Oh, boy.
$100
Banky's
right
throwing
now,
money on the table.
I don't know a lot about the draft. I'll be the first and the last to admit that. But I'll tell you what. There is no way the Packers pick 2 players in the first round.
Ooh,
they are going to trade down or trade out. There is no way. If he can get a number 1 for that Saints pick, if he can get another number 1 in the next...
I mean, if like a team tries to jump up for a quarterback or something.
There is no way, dude. He's not. He's going to pull the Tom... He's got a little bit too much Thompson in him. Okay, that's all I'm saying there.
What do you think? What do you think, Andy? Do you think there's a chance that they trade out of that 30th pick?
Well, I'm not totally against it, and it wouldn't totally shock me. I'm also not out of the thinking that they couldn't potentially move down from 12 either. And I think some of those free agency moves gave them the ability to do that.
Right.
If they, if an Ed Oliver and if a couple of those guys are gone and they don't have a guy that they view as one of those top tier talents at 12, and they get another Saints type of offer where they can move down to 28 or 29 and pick up another first rounder next year, something like that, that wouldn't shock me at all. But I actually think, almost on the flip side, I think that they want to come away with at least 2 guaranteed players that are not only going to help the team this year, but are going to be long-term fits for this franchise. So kind of almost on the flip side, I wouldn't be super shocked if they moved up a little bit from 30 either. And I just really think that,
that was going to be my next question, is not so much out of 30, but I don't know if you read Michael Cohen's piece on The Athletic about, the various different draft the value charts.
Yep.
But you know what? I hadn't really thought, because I get asked about it a lot on Packers Daily, about the possibility of jumping, say, way up into the top 5.
How do you even do
those picks? Well, that's the thing. I thought, well, no, it's way too expensive. But, the way Michael laid it out, as far as, the various, you look at the Jimmy Johnson trade chart, you look at, Chase Stewart's trade chart, you look at all the new ones, it's really not that prohibitive. What do you think the possibility is as far as Gutekunst maybe jumping up and getting a guy, in the top 5 of the draft?
Yeah, so here's my thoughts on that. Obviously, he's going to have to fall in love with a guy, which is certainly possible. But I think this is the scenario that they have to have in order for them to be successful over the course of the next couple of years. They have 4 players that they just spent 25% of their 2020 salary cap on. Right. I think they need 2 or 3 or 4 guys from this draft that are going to be able to help them long term. I would be very, very surprised if they packaged 2 of those picks up in their top 3 picks to get higher in the draft. Could they trade their 3rd rounder, 4th rounder, anything like that to get higher in the 1st or 2nd round? Sure. I don't question that at all. But I think, again, they need 2 or 3 high-end players out of this draft. And I think the best way to do that is to use the picks that they have and maybe use later picks to move up. So it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't, blow my mind. But that's the way that I would go about it, is thinking that I've got to hit on those first 3 picks. And this has got to be my, gold standard of a draft. This has got to be that New Orleans Saints draft from a few years ago.
2 years
and
ago.
That's how they're really, exactly. That's how they're going to be successful.
You come across people in this business when you're covering the NFL, you're covering a team, you're talking about a team, whatever. And you come along every once in a while with someone who kind of just fits. Andy, I got to tell you, buddy, you just fit, because you literally just answered 3 in a row the questions I had laid out before I got to ask them. Because my next question was, what do the Packers have to accomplish in this draft? And you just laid it out. Because to me, and
he laid out that you have to have 3, but not what the positions are.
Well, no, but not the position. Well, I don't think it matters. I mean, Andy, I don't know what you think, but I don't think the positions so much matter as you've got to have contributors.
I totally agree. I think there's so many different ways that they can go with this. Those top 3 picks, you basically can't take a quarterback and you can't take a running back. And obviously anything on special teams. Anything else should be fair game. If they feel that they're fairly confident with the player that they're taking, I don't care what other position that they take. I want high-end players. I want them to be able to come in and contribute right away. And I want them to have a ton of success down the road. Because like I said, this free agent spending spree that they did this year, of course, they're going to be able to do some cap gymnastics down the road, move Aaron Rodgers' contract down the line a little bit if they want. But they're not going to be able to do that same type of thing in the next couple of years, year after year. So they have to start hitting on young, talented, cheap players.
Let me ask you this in lieu of today's breaking news. How do you feel about LaFleur coming out and saying that they may have a joint practice in Green Bay? I mean, coming after 13 years of McCarthy eschewing the idea. What are your feelings there as far as breaking up the monotony of camp and having another team come into Green Bay?
I've actually been logged off of Twitter pretty much all day, so I hadn't even seen that. But
breaking news for you here, Andy.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. The prospect of it is certainly exciting. I know I'd certainly be there front and center if at all possible. I don't have an issue with, teams getting out of control in these practices. If they're hosting somebody, it's probably going to be a team that they're fairly comfortable with. Certainly you would think maybe the 49ers.
Oh, no. Did we lose him? Sounds like we lose him. We
the
lost
49ers.
49ers. I don't think
cool.
it'd be an NFC team, but it could be an AFC team. Well, there you go. Andy's just telling us what's what, and I'm just stalling to take up time because he answered all of our questions because he's a total pro.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't know, Banky. You look at this draft, you look at what the Packers got to do, and I do wonder, Gutekunst, all of this sets up to him having to extend, like, he's got a 5-year contract. He's entering year 2. He's got to make it happen. The turnaround has to start now.
I mean, I think differently than other Packer fans, but I don't like to say too much because then on Reddit they just pillory me.
Oh.
I mean, honestly, if we don't make the playoffs this year,
Oh boy.
I'm going to be protesting.
Oh boy.
1265.
You're right, but you're right there too.
1265. You better be ready because I'm going to be bringing.
Banky's going to be bringing the heat.
I am going to be bringing the pain. Like,
Are you ready?
Like Chris Rock. You remember that Chris Rock stand-up special?
Oh, of course. Bring the pain.
That's going to be me every night with a mega horn. And I'm gonna be like, just like,
oh
what?
God, I love it.
What did I be like? Be like, I'll make up some Mark Murphy chant. I'll have all kinds of Mark Murphy chants.
And you'll be one lone man across the street.
I'm gonna make a fire.
Oh
I'm gonna
my
make like a
God.
fire sign.
Fire
I'm gonna
pit.
burn the fire sign.
It'll be like
Right?
in what was the
No.
Batman movie where the Brooklyn Bridge lights up? Of course, it's not Brooklyn because it's Gotham, but like
Yeah,
the
that's
bridge
a good
lights
idea.
up.
Instead of a bat sign, I'm
Yeah.
gonna have a fire Mark Murphy sign
Oh,
that's gonna be a
Jesus.
spotlight and it's gonna shine on Lambeau Field.
Oh my God! Can you imagine?
What can they do?
They can't do anything.
Can't do
That's the best
nothing.
part.
Can't do nothing. Welcome to my life.
Oh my God! All right, you ready? Let's go to Blogosphere because
Okay.
it is definitely time.
Let's do it.
This week in the Packer blogosphere.
That's right. It's the return of that venerable series this week in the Packers Blogosphere.
What happened?
Corey, let me tell you something. You know what? Nothing happened in the Packers Blogosphere this week other than I wanted to let everyone know, remind everybody to check in on our Patreon page because let me tell you, the Naglers Never Right podcast, it's taken off. It's kind of sweet.
You got a lot of crazy. You got better guests on there than you ever get on here.
That's no one wants to talk to us.
No one wants to talk to us. It's like as soon as you include me.
No.
As soon as you include me in
That's not it.
anything in
Because,
your
hey,
life,
hey,
basically it's a fire
hey,
sale.
Hey, we record during the day on this show. All my podcasting is done at night when people are off duty.
They're like, oh,
Just
Corey
kinda
Banky's
hanging
in
out.
that? Oh, that guy, he hates me. He talks shit about me.
Relax. But the Naglers Never Right podcast exclusive on our Patreon page. If you're a patron, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, $5 a month. Only $5 a month. That's less than Netflix for much more entertainment, I guess. $5 a month.
It's less than the new Apple streaming service.
That's correct.
But you don't get
not
Oprah
only-
Winfrey and you
Thank God,
and you
or
don't get Steven Spielberg.
Okay, how funny is it that Steven Spielberg comes out, right, and is bitching about Netflix
Yeah.
and the Oscars, and then is involved with a streaming service?
Yeah, well,
Come on,
actually-
dude. Come on.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you say that because I actually put Steven Spielberg is a hypocrite
He totally
into Google,
is.
and then I put in the news, and there were all these posts that are like trying to explain how he wasn't a hypocrite,
he's
how
totally
what
a
he
hypocrite.
actually
Come
said was
on.
he was really talking about movie theaters and
yes, of course
he really is like he's really saying like Netflix shouldn't win Academy Awards, but I'm like, okay, everybody
Dude.
shut up. You watch movies on your TV.
wherever you watch them.
Like, yes, the theater is a crazy experience, but 90% of movies that people watch are on their TV.
Yep. 100%.
On their 80-inch or 70-inch
Well,
or
whatever it
65-inch TV.
Hell, I watched the new Triple Frontier. I watched that on my iPad on my commute. Like,
And what's
you just
crazy
watch
is
movies.
more
however you watch them.
people have seen a Steven Spielberg movie on their television than have ever seen them in the theater.
It's a blazing hypocrisy.
It
Just
is.
makes me
It's
so
ridiculous.
like, come on. But yeah, $5 a month. $5 a month. And it just does not just go to Naglers Never Right. It supports everything we do, including this podcast, including this show, including the draft guide. It like helps Cheesehead TV. So $5 a month. Patreon.com/cheeseheadtv. You see it right there. Please join us and enjoy Nego's Never Right. I just talked to Wes Hodkwitz, had a great chat with him.
It was good. I listened to that.
I love Wes. He's the best. Talked to Dan Katz from Barstool Big Cat. Talked to him. Talked to Michael Cohen. I talked to Rich Eisen. Like everybody I know in the biz, I just tell them to come on. We just shoot the shit, and it's a good time. So if you haven't jumped on board yet, I really hope you'll consider it. It's a lot of fun. And like I said, it helps everything we do at Cheesehead TV. Corey, anything else to add before we tell everybody?
No, we're going to do some exciting draft content.
Yes, I'll tease that a little bit.
We're gonna do a live draft show.
Here's the fun part. So we're gonna be here in the studio watching the draft with some friends. Now I had a bunch of friends lined up, and then a bunch of those friends canceled. But I've got some other friends hopefully coming on board. So it's like kind of in flux. But it is going to be fun. That's Friday night. Or I'm sorry, that's Thursday night for the first round. And then on night 2, on Friday night, that's when you get a little more granular. The players, it's not first round guys. It's not guys everybody knows. So we've got Andy, who you just heard on this here program, with a ton of draft nicks, basically. He did this last year. We loved it.
Yeah, it's cool.
He'll be doing basically like kind of a Google Hangout with a bunch of draft nerds. And you can get as into the weeds as you want. Corey and I will not be in attendance because that ain't our scene. But it's going to be great. It'll be here on the Cheesehead TV YouTube channel. And then on Saturday, for rounds 4 through 7, I will be at Kettle of Fish in New York City, in the Village, watching the draft. Come on by, have a beer. We'll be just watching the draft, talking Packers. I may shoot a video or two, like Facebook Live, whatever. But just come on by, have a beer, watch the draft. We're going to have a good time. Corey may drop by. He may not. It is up to him.
No one cares.
He's not a big draft nerd. So,
Corey, I watched the draft.
Watching the 5th round.
I watched the draft.
I know.
I watch all 3 days.
I'm just trying not to lock you in, is what I'm saying. You can drop by. I'd love to have you.
It's fun to watch to see who the new player is.
Exactly. Fun fact, after the week, I think it was the week after we drafted Aaron Rodgers, my band, yes, I was in a band, we were playing a gig down in Chelsea. Maybe it was here in Chelsea. It might have been down in the Village. I don't
remember this.
We were playing a gig. And literally, we get down with our second song, I think. And the stuff had died down. Music dies down. The clapping stops. And all of a sudden you hear from the back, Aaron Rodgers. And that was it. That was Corey's contribution to the evening. And then Aaron Rodgers went on to become a Pro Football Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer.
That was one of that. Honestly, really I feel like that draft day when we drafted him, I remember being in our headquarters in Inwood in our studio, and Brian Caribou was live.
Wow!
And I was live with Brian. It was we were I was in the studio,
in South Carolina,
and we were
with my folks.
And I remember posting stuff. I mean, it was crazy. I'll never forget. I was so excited that he dropped to us. I was just wow, this is real.
Pulled the trigger.
This is really happening.
Amazing. You were all in on Aaron Rodgers from the get-go. There's no doubt about that.
And I'll be all in on whoever we draft a quarterback next year.
Maybe next year? Maybe this year?
There's no way. It's next year.
Yeah, it's next year. I agree.
But there's no way we don't draft a quarterback next year. I could even see us drafting a quarterback in the later round like we have done in the past for a backup.
I agree.
Trade bait in 2 years.
Don't get me started on Kaiser, because it sure looks like we're about to roll into 2019 with Kaiser as the backup, and I don't want to talk about it. That's a whole nother show.
It's unfortunate.
So we're going to have to go. That'll do it for this special draft edition of Packer Transplants. We'd like to thank everyone who ordered a Cheesehead TV draft guide. Thank you so much. Whether you pre-ordered
it,
whether you just ordered it,
hundreds
thank
of
you
people.
So much. I can't tell you the amount of work that goes into it, the people that contribute to it, including Andy and everyone else. Al does a great job kind of spearheading it. I can't tell you guys the amount of work, and it's a real labor of love for these people who put it together. Corey and I are very minimally involved, thankfully for all of you who are interested in the draft. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for joining us here on Packer Transplants. You're the reason we do this. We are dedicated to Green Bay Packers fans worldwide. Thank you so much, everyone. Go Pack Go.
Hey, Winston, I'm sorry. Where is the Winston that has given us illumination and information in past press conferences? Did we do something that you're down on us again? But this was last week, it didn't go very well, and we want to talk about your guys, and I'm not quite sure what you want from us to make that happen.
I can't help you.